Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about one of the most sought after countries in the entire world, Malaysia, a country located in Southeast Asia. We're going to talk about the past, the present, and the future. I want you to form a picture for yourself and decide for yourself as to whether or not you want to move to Malaysia or not, as to whether or not you want a vacation in Asia, you want a nomad in Asia. So this video will help you decide whether Malaysia is the right fit for you or not. Perhaps you want to look at a different option. After watching this video, you will have enough information in your hands to make this decision. So let's get started talking about a period that just ended very recently. And what we're talking about here is, of course, COVID. COVID was a game changer for many people. We have seen how certain countries reacted in a way that we never expected they would react. And if we take a look at Malaysia, a country that officially closed its borders to foreign travelers, it was in March 2020 when that happened. So in March 2020, when the corona pandemic started, Malaysia closed its door to foreign tourists, travelers, and even long-term pass holders, including residents, people who Malaysia considers as its residents, and of course also like spouses of Malaysian citizens and people who had children in Malaysia. So those people during the pandemic, especially during the first period, were not allowed to enter the country. And that, of course, created a lot of anxiety. It created a lot of distrust in the system, in Malaysia's government. Because at the end of the day, if we take a look at how the whole world tried to resolve the corona pandemic or handle the corona pandemic, however you want to see this, right? However you want to look at this, we can see that certain countries reacted differently than others. But nobody expected that Malaysia would not allow Malaysia My Second Home pass holders to enter during times of great uncertainty, like a pandemic. So that was a game changer. Many people were locked out of the country. They were in Europe, North America, Latin America, Africa, Oceania, right? Australia, New Zealand, and other countries in Asia. And they were not allowed to go to Malaysia during this time, during certain phases of the pandemic. And now you have to think, right? Because if you want to move to Malaysia and you're like, hey, can a situation like this one occur again in the future? And the answer is, it is certainly possible. Because if you're living in Malaysia, and you invested the money, you qualified through a tedious process. It's never easy to obtain a long-term visa in any country. And then all of a sudden you're locked out of the country that you call your home. The question is, whether it is really your home or not. Because at the end of the day, if it is a legitimate residence permit, why aren't you allowed in? Why weren't you allowed in during certain phases of the pandemic? Other countries in Europe, countries in Latin America, they didn't do that. But Malaysia decided not to allow even their long-term pass holders, even their residents, not to enter, right? These people were not allowed to enter during certain phases of the pandemic. And what also happened, now we're talking a lot about the past, right? If you were locked outside the country, couldn't go back in, we know that already. But then what also happened, if you held a Malaysia My Second Home pass, the government then also announced that you were not allowed to renew that pass unless you were able to qualify under the new requirements. We're talking about quadrupled income requirements. So the income requirements changed from 10,000 ringgit a month to 40,000 ringgit a month. Then the government said, okay, existing pass holders do not need to comply with the new requirements. But at first they said they have to comply with the new requirements. And that again created even more distrust. First of all, they told you, okay, you were not allowed to enter if you were overseas. That's really a big red flag. And secondly, they told you all of a sudden you have to meet new requirements, even though they didn't talk about that when you signed up. You signed up under these conditions, that these conditions would apply for a lifetime. And so we can understand why people have resentment towards Malaysia and why people are skeptical about anything the leadership says in that specific country. Malaysia is again fully open to tourists, is again fully open to Malaysia My Second Home pass holders. And by the way, something that I forgot to point out over the past couple of minutes is actually that this also applied to the Malaysia Tech Entrepreneur Program, a program that I tried to apply for, I was in the middle of the process, and then the government agency told me that I couldn't proceed with my application because the program had been paused. Again, not an ideal scenario for somebody who spent already time, who spent already money getting the documents ready, and all of a sudden the government tells you that you cannot proceed with your application due to COVID. In my humble opinion, they should have just allowed people to apply anyway. Once you've been approved, okay, you cannot come now, but at least continue the process. Especially if people have already spent money getting the documents, getting the criminal record certificate, getting their bank statements, getting all kinds of documents, doing the presentation, blah, blah, blah. So much was needed, even for that visa too, right? And people don't want to waste time. And people don't like when you waste your time, And so if you applied for that visa too, which is the Malaysia Tech Entrepreneur Program during COVID, you were also not allowed in. You were also not allowed to get that visa, even though you already started the process. And so I've spoken to so many people over the past couple of years who were not happy about the decision from the leadership to make these adjustments, right? To take these crazy steps. And so I just wanted to point this out here too. But right now, Malaysia, like I said, if you want to go there as a digital nomad, if you want to go there as an entrepreneur with the Malaysia Tech Entrepreneur Program, if you want to go there as an investor, if you want to go there as a retiree with the Malaysia My Second Home Program, you can do that again. It is fully open again. So you can do that. But again, the requirements changed. What's very positive about Malaysia is that Malaysia has a growing economy. Malaysia has positive GDP growth. And of course, it suffered a little bit during the pandemic, had a little bit of a setback, if you will. But Southeast Asia has great economic growth. We're talking about Malaysia, Vietnam, really great economic growth. And so if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an investor, if you're a startup entrepreneur, if you're a digital nomad looking for opportunities overseas in Southeast Asia, you might want to consider the region. If you're looking to build a business, if you're looking to network with like-minded individuals, because there's so many great nomads and entrepreneurs stationed there, living there, right? And so because of that, the networking opportunities that you have in Southeast Asia, almost unheard of. You meet lots of interesting people from different backgrounds, different countries, and people who live in Southeast Asia, especially Malaysia, they typically love the lifestyle, they love the country, and it's something that they really believe in, which is important in life, right? You want to follow something that you believe in. And if you can be around your own sort, your own kind, I think that's also very important for your own personal growth. So you want that. So if you're falling into one of the categories, digital nomad, startup entrepreneur, investor, retiree, and you want to live the tropical lifestyle, you want to build a business, great. You can do all of that in Malaysia. Let's talk about the median age in Malaysia. And it's a very important point. People are leaving Western countries. They say, hey, I want to be around younger people. I don't want to be around old people like it is in many Western countries, or almost all Western countries today. I want to be around a younger population. The energy is better, there's more optimism, and that just makes perfect sense why people would want to move from, say, Norway or from Germany to Malaysia. Makes perfect sense, right? Or from the US, wherever. Makes perfect sense, right? So as of today, the median age in Malaysia is roughly 30.5 years. That means out of two people, one person is older than 30.5 years and one person is younger than 30.5 years. Now, what we have seen over the past couple of years is that the median age is also going up in Malaysia. So you're not exempt. Nobody's exempt. Meaning you want to flee the West, to head over to a more tropical country where there is a younger population. Yes, you can achieve that. However, you have to be aware that the median age is going up everywhere. Why is the median age going up everywhere? Because Southeast Asia is duplicating big parts of the Western wealth system. That's just a matter of fact. Healthcare, economics, feminism, everything is being duplicated. Like what Southeast Asia is doing is nothing unique. Malaysia is experiencing one of the fastest median age growth in the history of the world. And you gotta be aware of that too. And as of today, Malaysia has an aging population. An aging population is a population of a country where at least 7% of the entire population of all the people in the country are older than 65 years. So 7% of the entire population is older than 65 years. And by the year 2044, I've read this prediction, by the year 2044, okay, could be earlier, could be later, we don't know. By the year of 2044, Malaysia will have an aged population. And an aged population is a population where 15% of the entire population, that's all the people in the country, will be older than 65 years. 15% of the population will be older than 65 years. When that happens, right, Malaysia will have a median age of, I believe, over 40 years, 42 years. And then again, we're looking at being around older people like it is in Western Europe. It is just delayed. The effect is delayed, but there's no running from it, because how countries become rich is by adopting the Western system. That's what it's all about. Many people are saying, like Western countries are bad, they've moved in the wrong direction, feminism, like taxes, this and that. Well, just wait a few more years. Within the next decade, you will see drastic changes in Southeast Asia in terms of taxes, in terms of feminism. It's actually already taking place now, trust me. I've lived there for 8 years. I've seen the changes year by year, year after year. I've seen it, and it's only going to get worse. It's going to get stronger. I'm not sure if worse is the best word to use. Sounds kind of pessimistic, but it will become like the West in many aspects. And some aspects are good, some aspects not. It's the law of life. There's no good without bad. There are no positives without negatives, right? Any business deal has positives and negatives, whether that's financially speaking, the people you work with, the product, the lifespan, whatever, all has positives and negatives. So Southeast Asia is on a run. Southeast Asia hit a run, but no run lasts forever. Remember that. All good times come to an end. They have to come to an end. No good time lasts forever. All good times have to come to an end. Next, I wanted to talk about something very serious that is concerning, and you should be aware of it. So basically, one of my subscribers commented, and he said that he was unable to transfer money out of one of his bank accounts in Malaysia. So he was unable to get into the country, and he was trying to transfer money out of Malaysia. I don't know what country he was trying to transfer the money to, but since it was COVID and since the bank knew that he was unable to return to Malaysia, they did not allow him to transfer the money out. He hired a lawyer, and it took him 1 year before he was able to transfer the money out of his Malaysian bank account. And he commented that he cannot trust these people anymore. He cannot trust this bank anymore. He cannot trust this system anymore. Just so you know that what can happen during times of great uncertainty when a country does not allow you to transfer your funds out of your account. It is no fun seeing your money stuck in a country, being unable to visit a country, and being unable to transfer that money out of the country. That is a very unpleasant experience to deal with, to be in. And one of my subscribers, like I said, he had to undergo this process and had to spend money, put some fire under the butts before he was able to get his money out. Not an ideal scenario at all, but this can happen. So now, this is maybe not standard, but I find it pretty odd that the bank decided to take this crazy approach, considering that he was going back there anyway. At some point, he was going to be able to get the money out anyway, but that's just how banks operate. So your money isn't safe in Malaysian bank either, because any bank can decide from one day to the next that they won't let you withdraw the money, and they come up with all their own reasons why they don't want you or why they don't let you withdraw your money. So now we're seeing the banking crisis in America, Switzerland, with Credit Suisse. And yes, these banks are having problems, but Malaysian banks are having problems too. And they make up rules on the fly. And unless you're a citizen, unless you're inside the country, you have very little legal protection in that country. And I think the last thing that you want to do is hire an attorney to get your money out. First of all, it's expensive. Secondly, there are no guarantees, especially if you're not in the country, because again, you don't have legal strength in that country. And that's something I want you to consider. And now let's talk about something more positive again. If you want to go to Malaysia really consider the long-term picture, like what do you want to do in the country? What do you want to accomplish? Citizenship is not possible. You got to have lived in the country for 10 years, and we're talking consistent residence. Okay, 10 years living in Malaysia could get you citizenship, but there's a caveat. Malaysia does not allow dual citizenship. So meaning, if you are a citizen of a different country and you want to keep that citizenship, then you are not allowed to do that. You can do it, but if Malaysia, or when Malaysia figures out, won't be too good for you, right? So we got to consider everything. So Malaysia is not a good flag for somebody who wants to become a citizen. Malaysia, in my opinion, is a great place to network. Malaysia is a great place for startup entrepreneurs. So I'm saying this for sure because I've had my own experiences. So I would suggest that if you want to go to Malaysia and you're like, hey, I don't want to get too involved financially, I want to start a business, I want to live in Malaysia, unless you can qualify under the Malaysia My Second Home program, you want to potentially consider the Malaysia Tech Entrepreneur Program that's available to startup entrepreneurs as well as established entrepreneurs. And many people on this channel are entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs or established entrepreneurs. Think about it, right? Because the entry requirements for the Malaysia Tech Entrepreneur Programs are less, okay? You got to do less things, you got to do fewer things than if you were to apply for the Malaysia My Second Home program. And again, the requirements have gone up a lot, they have quadrupled. So think about that. If you just want a nomad, let's say you're a digital nomad, you want to spend time in the tropics, you want to live the Southeast Asia routine, then you can do that as well, and probably without getting a very difficult to obtain visa. And now also Malaysia got the Rantau Digital Nomad Visa, which isn't very difficult to get for some people. You got to have income proof, a couple other things, health insurance, this and that. You could get that visa for a year and you could renew it once. And so there is this option too, or you could just go to Malaysia on a 90-day tourist visa, spend some time there, network, meet some people, work together, mastermind, whatever you want to do. You can do that also as a tourist in Malaysia. I personally recommend Malaysia to digital nomads and startup entrepreneurs specifically because there's just more to gain than there's to lose. Do you really want to invest a lot of money? Do you really want to commit a lot to a country where you just don't know if you can become a citizen, where the residency is just not as strong as it is in other countries, where you just don't get the same rights? And so the question is, do you want to invest a lot of money in a country like this or not? Do you want to spend all the time getting a hard to obtain visa just so you can be there, but again, you're not there in a sense that you're a true resident or a true citizen, right? You just cannot do that unless you're willing to give up a lot more. Really think about the whole picture. So I recommend Malaysia to digital nomads, startup entrepreneurs, established entrepreneurs. Another thing we haven't pointed out is institutionalized racism is definitely very embedded in Malaysia's systems. What do I mean by that? Okay, well, the head of the leadership, they prioritize, all the laws are structured in certain areas, we're talking schools, institutions, the laws are structured to prefer, right, to benefit the Malays more than the other ethnicity groups. We're talking about minorities, right, the Indians, the Chinese, or the whites, the blacks, right? The local laws are structured in a way to prioritize the Malays, okay? Malaysia, Malays, a structure to prioritize the Malays, and that institutionalized racism is seen in schools, all kinds of different institutions, and much more. So be aware of the two. If you want to go to Malaysia, bring your family there, and you're thinking like, oh, I can get government support, this and that. It really depends. It really depends on, again, your ethnicity. It depends on many factors, but make sure you consider that. And I think this factor should not be downplayed because some people aren't talking about this stuff because it is tricky stuff to talk about. Nobody likes to, talk about racism. Nobody likes to talk about institutionalized racism, but it is definitely embedded in the country's systems. Who do you think should move to Malaysia? Who do you think should vacation in Malaysia? Would you personally live in Malaysia? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe now and turn on alerts to never miss any of my future nomadism, dating, and business advice videos. Thank you for watching.